Days of the past where relationships lasted 20, 30 years is rare now. Back in our grandparents' days, that was common. If you got married, you stayed married no matter what goes on. Have 2 or 3 kids during the marriage, people still stay together. But they said stress is the number one, some people say stress is the number one killer of all diseases, stress. So if your relationship is more stressful than it is helpful, the questions we need to start asking ourselves is, why are we still there? Why are you still there? And why is the other person still there? If somebody cheated on you and you took them back, why would you be the one who's pressing them, worried about going through their phone, asking them where you been, who you did, who you was with, and all this and that, constantly every day, starting an argument? If you was to take that person back, then you should forgive whatever he did. Constantly bringing up is not a happy place. If that's all y'all talk about is you're arguing about where you been and what you did, going through the phone, you're finding text messages. There's so many people out here in the world. Why don't you just leave? Less stress on you, and you ain't got to deal with the headache of worrying about what he's doing or worrying about what she's doing. It's so easy to get caught up in the fact that you love somebody or like somebody at the moment, thinking that that's the only person. But all of us been in more than one relationship. And even if you only been in one, you should know that you shouldn't put up with too much things before you realize it's a dead end. Just find a different way to release yourself and get up out of there. Abusive relationships, things of that nature, get up out of there. You don't need that. It's plenty of good men out here. That's if you're not caught up on the material things. Like if you're with somebody because they got a nice car or because they dress good, what are their intellect like? What are their goals and ambitions in life? If their goals and ambition is just to party and look fly, then maybe you need to reevaluate who you're trying to chase, because that's not life. Sooner or later, everything is going to come down to what have you done up until you got old, and you can't even, what was fun then ain't fun no more. It's all about investing in your future. Marriages are supposed to be happy. Yeah, of course there's going to be some downtime, some arguments, some growing, learning each other. But you got to be willing to put in the time to make things work. Nothing is easy. Me and my wife been together almost 20 years. It was not easy. We had our times where we was ready to call it quits. We was arguing more than it was happiness for stretches, until we sat down and actually had a deep conversation about where did we want to be in the next 5 years. Well, actually the next year was turning to the next 5 years, returning to the next 10 years. Because we knew, even though we didn't understand each other right then and there, we knew we didn't want to be with nobody but each other. We wasn't saying we want to be with each other because we had kids, because having kids would not make you happy. That's just showing your kids that you can be with somebody and be unhappy, because kids watch us. They watch what we do. And when they see us do something constantly, that's when they think it's normal. And then they're going to grow up thinking if they're in a relationship the same way, that's normal. Perfect example, if somebody's abusive, kids would take that on. Next thing you know, they're abusive. You don't want that thing. You don't want them to be being in a relationship where they're unhappy and they're constantly arguing. Set some ground rules in your relationship to know, look, if you got an attitude right now, I got an attitude right now. Let's not argue in front of the kids, even though it may happen. Try not to argue in front of the kids. Say, if somebody's saying something, let it get it off their chest. Then revisit the conversation once the other person is cooled out or you've cooled out. Find a different way to approach the problem instead of just coming in there hollering and nothing is getting accomplished. Don't leave it. Don't think the situation will die down and don't talk about it no more. Resolve the situation, so in the back of your mind and in the back of their mind, it's done. It's nothing that you're still trying to hash out. Like you'd have moved on from that You done said your piece, they done said their piece, now you can move forward. But if you don't resolve it, sooner or later in the next argument, it's going to be brung right back up. And then that's getting you nowhere, because you done started with one problem, then they bring up an old problem, then you're arguing about the old problem and the new problem. You're just going in circles. Just try to work on yourself. And the best thing is, once I found out what made me tick, the type of person I was, what I didn't like and what I did like, I was able to communicate to my wife better in a way to where we could talk and have a disagreement, but it's not an argument. We're not hollering, we're not just saying, we're not listening to respond. We're listening to understand and then respond. Because if you only listening to respond, then you're not really understanding what they're saying. It got to be a little push, a little bit of pull in the relationship. You got to give some to get some. That goes on both ends. You can't just be like, well, I've always been this way, and then expect them to change some ways that they got. If you are willing to change and you show them that, then they should be willing to change too. And I don't believe in doing 50-50 in a relationship, because that leaves 50 out there. So I give my wife 100% in whatever I do, so she can give 100. Because if she's giving her all and I'm giving my all, then we should always reach our destination. Even though it might not be the route that we started on, eventually we're going to get there if both of us is trying. And if you're showing that example to your kids, then they can grow up and handle things in a different way. That will make their relationships better, where they won't have to put up with the same things that we put up with. Everything is about the knowledge that you pass on to your kids. So if you show them the proper way to do things, they're going to catch on even without you exactly telling them, because they're watching. So if they can see how you and your significant other come to a conclusion of disputes, then they would take up that, and hopefully they would do the same. Not saying they're going to follow everything you do and like it's perfect, but at least they'll have a better understanding. Only thing I'll try to do is let everybody know, from younger than me to older than me to my boys, that if you are in a relationship and you wanted to make it work, do whatever you got to do to make it work. If it doesn't work and you have kids, accept that it's not working. Move on. If the woman puts you on child support, don't get bitter and then think you're hurting the woman by not seeing your kids. You're only hurting the kids. So then once they get older, you done missed out on so much of their life that they probably don't even want to have nothing to do with you, or you don't have no kind of bond that you think you can make up for once they get grown. And then if you're like, well, she won't let me see my kids, why you ain't going to court? Them people will make you see your kids. They will let you see them, and when you get visitation, be there during visitation. Don't be putting them off for whatever reason. Be there and show them that you're giving 100% effort to be a part of their life. And maybe when she moves on or he moves on, maybe then the relationship that y'all have, even though y'all split, can become more easing, and to where y'all can communicate at a better pace, and it seem like a extended family. Even though y'all not together, y'all handing the kids off with smiles and whatever. Or if it's to the point it's toxic where you can't, well, get somebody else to drop them off and you pick them up, or some of that nature. But never think you are punishing the woman by not seeing your kids. You're only hurting the kids. I try my best to lead by example for my son and my daughter and my peers as well. So I hope this message helps anybody that's dealing with any kind of relationship problems. Stress is the number one killer. Less stress is what we need to achieve. Find a way to be happy. Find ways to be happy with your significant other, to live a full life. Have some memories that you have with them that's pleasant, and not every time you go out you're arguing and only thing you remember is spots of when y'all was happy. You remember more bad times than you remember good. That's my message for today, and I hope this message touch a lot of people and show you that everybody goes through the same thing. Not exactly the same, but somewhere around the same thing. And remember, tomorrow starts a new day.